So I'd written two books set in Nazi Germany, The Wish Child and Remote Sympathy. And I thought that I'd got that history, that dark history, out of my system. Like I'd done those two books. I felt like I was pretty much done with that period. But while I was researching, in particular, while I was researching Remote Sympathy, which is set in and around Buchenwald concentration camp, which is not one of the death camps way out east. It was in the heart of Germany, in the heart of civilized Germany. Um, while I was researching that book, I just kept turning over and over in my mind that question, that impossible question, is there ever a morally sound reason for drawing on the research that was conducted at the camps? Often pseudoscience anyway, but can we ever kind of delve into that and see if any good can come of that horror? And this is a question that can never be answered, really, I think. But I couldn't stop kind of turning it over. And also, I was really interested and am really interested in the fact that an event like World War II is never black and white. You can never say we were on the side of the good people because, the firebombing of Hamburg or Dresden or, any other number of blanket attacks that killed innocent civilians and children and, the horrors that were perpetrated by our side um, can't just be brushed under the carpet. So I was interested in that too. And so all of that got me thinking about what would have happened if World War II had ended differently. And I know lots and lots of writers have been down that path before, but I didn't want to consider what would have happened if there had been a German victory, which lots of writers have before me. I wanted to think about what would have happened if really no one had won, and if there was this sort of uneasy truce agreed upon where certain concessions have to be made on each side, but there is also the sharing of certain information and research so that lots of scientific advancements end up happening much earlier. How would the world have looked in that case? So that was really my jumping off point for the Book of Guilt. And
The
so
three
so
the three triplets. Another really
yeah,
clever. Do you mind introducing? I need to cut you the Buzz Zoom buffer. Do you mind to introduce us to these characters, these three triplets, and then also this wonderful Nancy character, Nancy, who's really an important character in this story as well.
yeah. So the Book of Guilt is told from the perspective of Vincent, who was a 13-year-old boy living in a slightly skewed version of England in 1979. And he's living in the New Forest in southern England in a boys' home, an orphanage, with his triplet brothers, Lawrence and William. And they are the last remaining children in this home. They're being raised by Mother Morning, Mother Afternoon, and Mother Night. And there are other homes like theirs scattered around England as part of a thing called the Sycamore Scheme. Once every couple of months, Dr. Roach comes to visit to check on the boys because they are very vulnerable to a mysterious illness known as the bug, which affects different children in different ways. Lots of children before the boys have died from the bug. Some children have recovered, and the children who recover are lucky enough to go to Margate, which is a seaside resort that every Sycamore home child longs to go to. They can bathe in the sea every day. They can stuff themselves with candy floss to their heart's content. They can go to the amusement park Dreamland. So this is what the triplets want. But they find out fairly near the start of the story that the home and all the other homes like it in England are to be shut down by the new government. And this process is going to be implemented by a woman known as the Minister of Loneliness. So that's one strand of the story told by Vincent. The second strand of the story is told by the Minister of Loneliness. And the third strand is a girl called Nancy, who's also 13. She's living a wee distance away from the boys in Exeter with her parents. And her parents have never let her leave the family home her entire life. If anyone comes to the house, like a plumber or an electrician, she has to hide in the wardrobe and not make a sound. And so her whole life is kind of filtered through the television programs that she watches, the actual 1979 TV programs that were playing then, and that's how she understands the world. The way that the boys understand the world is via a set of outdated children's encyclopedias called the Book of Knowledge. So all four children in the book are living a very confined and prescribed life, and gradually over the course of the story, those three strands begin to intertwine.
When you are dealing with dialogue as the art form that it of course is central to writing any novel, what do you enjoy about using it as a vehicle to do any number of things within moving a story along back and forth between these characters?
Mm. I really love making the dialogue work hard and to talk about something beyond what it seems it's saying superficially. Um, so if I think about my novel Pet for a moment, which is also told from a child's point of view, a 12-year-old girl, Justine. At one point in the book, a friend says to her, well, my mother says that we shouldn't worry about what other people think. We should only worry about what's inside us. And Justine's response to that is, I don't know what me, which just means I don't know what makes me tick. But also in the sort of bigger and much darker context of the book, she doesn't know what she's capable of doing. So yeah, that's what I love achieving with dialogue, making it sound natural, um, but also pushing it that little bit harder to kind of be a load-bearing scaffolding for the story. I was really just thinking about my own childhood, um, growing up, and so Justine is close to my age. There's 2 years between us. But yeah, thinking about that era in New Zealand, attending a Catholic school the way that I did, and thinking about what a time of flux it was when the church was changing. The church was supposedly modernizing, women were taking more of a role in the mass, but really nothing was changing at all. Um, and it was, quite a cruel time to be a kid then if you weren't the kind of kid who fitted in. And it was a really racist time as well. Like I remember terrible things being shouted at the Maori or Chinese or Polynesian kids on the playground, and no one really standing up and saying, "Hey, don't say that." Um, and it was also a time that was much more permissive in terms of what a teacher could do. So, they could still hit children as punishment. And there was a teacher at our school who was incredibly charismatic, very glamorous. Everyone wanted to be her pet, and she did play favorites. And she, as well as playing favorites, she did ostracize certain children who she didn't like for whatever reason. And I know that must have had a terrible and lasting effect on those children. But again, no one ever really put up their hand and said, that's not okay. So, that was the genesis of Pet.